everybody, and apologise if some of you have heard this before. I see some names in the audience. Explaining who I am, I got into the restaurant business about 40 years ago, and I weighed about 10 stone. And many of you, some might of you worked in restaurants, but it involves free food and free alcohol. And I just had to stick with it. It was grim, but there you go. And Lucy said this before many times, but I mean, I started as a dishwasher when I was a student, teacher, and teaching involves about 35 really horrible people locked in a room for about 40 minutes. But restaurants, the time span is about 40 minutes, but they're usually giving you money and they're usually having a good time. And then you have to organise the staff as well, which is a bit like students. I taught primary, actually, for my sins in Brixton. So anything's better than that. My personal history, and also quite a lot of my colleagues, because we've a team that have been working together for 20 years or more. We worked at Pizza Express. As I say, I went from dishwasher to chairman, a bit like the Medicis. You kill everybody on the way, and then you get the top job. Actually, seriously, it was a lovely company then. You went from dishwasher straight off the boat from Naples, obviously not in my case, and you became a dishwasher, then you became a waiter, then you became a chef, manager, area manager, then you saved up some money, you became a franchisee, which is what I did. I became a multiple franchisee, and I had about 13 or 14, mostly south of the M4, mostly beginning with B. And then I met two guys in short trousers called Hugh Osman and Luke Johnson, and we reversed in '93. Maybe some of you in the room remember the major franchisee that was me and the franchisor into a little public shell at 40p, and we eventually were bought out at about £4, I think. But the shares did go to £9. And then my second iteration was at Clapham House, where we built up 4 brands, one of which went into CVA today, GBK, a long time after we sold it. This is our third iteration of a public company. Clapham House was because we thought of the name of my brother's house, he lives in Clapham. And Fulham Shore because I live in Wandsworth, and when I wake up, that's what I can see. So the name is just a name. And currently, we have 2 businesses within Fulham Shore, FRANCO MANCA, and the Real Greek. And when we set up Fulham Shore, we were determined that we weren't going to be bought out again at the wrong time and the wrong price, which has happened at Pizza Express and Clapham House, because we owned less than 15% of the company between us. This time we've made a rod for our own back, and there's quite a small float, because we own about 70% of the company between friends and family. So we decided that we were going to find a couple of businesses and operate it as a quoted venture capital outfit. We put in our own money, hence we own most of the business. And we said we'd buy 2 or 3 businesses and grow them. Effectively, what we've been doing for 25, 30 years, you find a good idea, you make it better, you try and make it better, and then you open more of them. You replicate. And then at some point you get off and allow somebody else to take the business from a certain number. Probably the sweet spot is between 40 and 50 units, and you allow somebody else to take it to 150. Obviously, Brexit has put a hole in that strategy, because FRANCO MANCA is now about 42, and I shouldn't think there'll be any deals going on, as somebody said, with Corbyn on the horizon or Brexit. So we set up for Fulham Shore as a growth restaurant business. We listed on AIM for 6 pence, I seem to remember. How many did we have then? I think we had 6 restaurants then, or maybe 4, I can't remember. All the Greek restaurants. And then now we're 58 in 4 years' time. And it sounds a pretty obvious statement, but we're about very good food. And how we produce very good food is at a very low cost to ourselves and to the customer, is that we, because of our knowledge of the business, we've gone directly to Italy, Spain, and Greece, and we know the families, excuse me, we know the families and we know the growers. Sometimes we forward buy the product, and we know the product intimately, and therefore we cut out 2 or 3 middlemen, merchants in the home countries where the product's coming from, the shippers, the wholesalers here, we cut them all out. And so we buy the best product at the best price, which feeds through, to really low price for customers, very high volumes because the customers appreciate the quality of the food. And then in both places, we incentivize the staff, so the staff keep all their own tips, 100% of their own tips. They enjoy their work. I'm used to be a waiter. I really enjoy being a waiter and I enjoy the tips. And we keep the prices really low. We are something like 40% cheaper than Pizza Express with a better product. There aren't many Greek competitors, but if there were, we're about half the price of Limonia in Primrose Hill. So, as I said before, we buy the assets and then we grow them as quickly as possible, given the economic environment of whatever the government is doing to the national economy. We're expanding the businesses. We're expanding them carefully. It's almost, as I said, it's like a private venture capital company that's got a quote. So we're under no pressure to hit targets. We will grow as we think the business should be grown to maintain the value of each brand. And also hit some sort of exit for either one or both the brands, the date. Dividends are low on the horizon because any cash we have and generate in the company, EBITDA effectively, we invest in a restaurant. Now, the metrics of FRANCO MANCA is the average cost is $650, and we get a 30% return on capital immediately. And that goes on throughout the lease life. And then the Greek is a bit more expensive because they're a bit bigger in terms of size, footprint. So they're $750, but in fact we get the same percentage return on capital immediately on average. So in fact the Greek is actually throwing off more cash per unit. Average cash thrown off per unit is over £200,000 a unit for the whole company. So that's our history. We incorporated the company privately, a couple of pence, threepence, something like that. We went on the ISD market just as that Tory party chairman bought it and decided to change all the rules. In 2013, we tried out a FRANCO MANCA franchise in Tottenham Court Road. It was brilliantly successful. In October 14, we were admitted to AIM and on the same day acquired the Greek, which had 4 restaurants. I think we've actually owned the Greek 3 times. Bought and sold it 3 times. And then about 6 months later, we bought FRANCO MANCA. And both the Greek and the FRANCO MANCA business were mainly for paper, for share, with the private company owners. We're about £60 million at the moment. The board owns 38%, but the family of the board, children and uncles and aunts, as I say, own up to about 70% of the company, friends. And we've only got 2 really of the larger institutions involved. Where's that clever thing? Oh, there it is. So basically I trained as a cartographer, and then I was sacked for having long hair. And then I was sacked by the teaching inspector who didn't agree with my teaching methods. Previously to that, I've been sacked by a mental hospital where I worked as a porter. And then when Nando's took over Pizza Express, guess what? I was sacked. And then when Nando's took over Club and House again, guess what? I was sacked. So this is my 5th or 6th try at a job. He was learning medicine. He came to wash up in Pizza Express in Putney in '86. He now runs the company. He's Egyptian, but pretends he's Greek, because he's got a Greek. We were Christian before you, is his famous comment. He comes from Alexandria, which, as we all know in the room, was where Matthew of the gospel fame went to proselytize. He was our broker at Pizza Express. He's a new boy. He's only been with us for 14 years. Martin kept £35 million in HSBC at Pizza Express. He was a bank manager. And Des runs D&D restaurants. Just happens to have been to the same school as I did, but he speaks a very posh accent and he's 6 years younger than me. So the Real Greek. Who's been to the Real Greek? Aha, you're already a converts. It was rubbish about 6 years ago. I hope some of you have been there since we bought it back. But it's now really good and very popular. As I say, it turns over more money than FRANCO MANCA, makes more money per unit. We're up to 16. It's had its ups and downs through its life in 1999. We've got a bit of Israeli cuisine in there now, and Egyptian, because it's run by an Egyptian. But all from the Eastern Mediterranean. And we've gone into partnership with a very nice girl from the Greek community in North London called Tanya Buxton. And she's our chef that launches all our new dishes. We had a very successful vegan menu. The whole diet lends itself to non-meat dishes. Opened 4 in the last financial year. We've moved out of London. Bournemouth, during the summer, becomes one of the busier restaurants. And we are looking for new sites, both in London and outside of London. We're in both Westfields, and they do very well. Shopping centres in general do very well. FRANCO MANCA was a cult pizza offering. FRANCO MANCA, hands up. Oh, very good, yeah, about half the audience. Incredibly popular, queues out the door. We keep the places really small, so we're using every square foot of the premises to sit the customers down and make some money. Incredibly cheap, really good value, which is what is driving the business. And to give each restaurant ownership of the product that they're creating, they make everything from scratch in each restaurant. We don't have a central commissary. They have to be to blame if something goes wrong in their restaurant. They can't say, head office told me to do that, I haven't got my order in. They prepare everything every day. When we bought it in 2015, it was 11, it's now 42. We cannibalized ourselves by opening lots in London. What you have to do when you're establishing a restaurant brand is blanket the area that you want to create an image in, and obviously we were in London and we wanted to expand on the brilliant success of FRANCO MANCA, so we really started opening FRANCO MANCA stores around other FRANCO MANCA stores, so we had a cannibalization issue, but we're coming to the end of that. Less than £10 a head to the customer, whereas the Greek is 16. We've opened outside London. Oxford and Cambridge obviously very successful because it's London effectively. Brighton very successful, London by the sea. Bristol, London West, but it's a bit slower outside places that are not natural London audiences. And here we've grown the business in numbers. We slammed on the anchors recently because we don't really know what's happening with our government or Corbyn or Brexit or anything. However, saying that, I think we've said, haven't we, our sales are actually much better now, improving. Not 10% up, but single digit up on last year. And this has given us the courage again we're going to do 4 or 5 openings this year. We'll probably push that up if we can find some decent sites at low rents to 8 next year, maybe a bit more the year after, but we'll have to wait and see what Brexit brings. These are our last results. I think our next results are coming out half year on the 12th or the 13th of December. As I say, we've now had 27 weeks, and the good sales have continued in the first half of the year. The spend per head's gone down a bit actually, so real customers have gone up. Real number of pizzas served and real number of Greek meals served. It's our own business. We own 70% when nobody's really telling us how to run it, which is great. We're probably going to open, or we're certainly going to sign a couple of new FRANCO MANCA before Christmas. May open one before Christmas and one after. Signed in Edinburgh. And we're going to try and cluster some openings in March, April, May, so we get, or try and get a full financial year of contribution from however many FRANCO MANCA and Greek we open. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. We're also looking abroad. We've opened in Italy. The founder of the business bought a house on an island north of, and then he told us he bought a freehold for a FRANCO MANCA. So, you know, we opened FRANCO MANCA there, 4 or 5 months in the summer, does very well. It's now been open 2 summers. Half-year results are out in December. So the restaurant market is, you know, wildly over-expanded and oversupplied in London due to retail being rubbish for 3 or 4 years. So developers are saying, oh, what can we fill our ghastly shopping centres full of? And let's fill them full of restaurants. And of course, they then put too many restaurants in. And they say oversupply of restaurants, and you can't mention the Brexit word, but when an oversupply of a certain commodity arrives and then you get public confidence lacking, the two things collide in a very nasty way. I mean, I've been around so long that I remember in '73, I was a student working in Wimbledon Pizza Express, and Heath turned, some of you in the room remember, turned the power off at 6 o'clock to domestic houses, so because the miners weren't cooperating. And of course, he kept the power on for the high street shops and the factories until 11 o'clock. We were rammed, absolutely rammed. And then at 10 o'clock, we put the oven on really high so heat stayed, and we put candles on the table. So we were trading until 11:30. So even in '73, when Heath was government was falling apart, we were having a really good time. So, sorry. So despite the oversupply and the venture capital putting lots of money into restaurants, eating out of home is still growing. We've got 2 very successful businesses. We've been profitable every 6-month period we've reported since we've floated, and we believe, Lucy, that's going to be the same on the 12th of December, don't we? We have queues. Public love us. Debt's coming down. We've got a 15 million facility, peaked at 14.5. It'll be about 10, or we've told the market it'll be about 10 at the half year. Very experienced management team. We've been through bad times before. Foot and mouth, not good. 9/11, not good, no tourists. Incompetent government of various political persuasion, not good. Brexit, not good. Corbyn, not good. However, people still carry on eating out. And board own a lot of the company, very well motivated to make sure it's a big success. And I can't remember a more challenging UK backdrop. Can anybody in the room? And we have some very, very lovely restaurants that we're still proud to own and eat in. That's it.
Thank you. Put your hands up. Any questions for David, please? Okay.
My FD is not here, so if there's any really complicated accounting questions, I'm not going to answer them.
You mentioned the one FRANCO MANCA outlet in Italy.
Yes.
Do you have any medium-term plans to expand, say, in their major cities at all?
Yes. Franchising is fraught with difficulties in the UK or abroad. I used to be the major franchisee. I probably wouldn't have franchised to myself. And Robbie, who runs Nando's, very nice chap, has got about 350 in the UK, and he did have about 150 around the world from Nando's. And he has spent the last 5 or 6 years, it's a private company, so it doesn't really matter, I can say anything about that. He's spent the last 150 stores are probably now down to 80, because he's gone around the world undoing all the franchise contracts he signed just because he wanted money in around the world. In almost every country you can think of, he's had to visit, and he's had to say, look, you're hopeless, I'm closing you down, or you're very good, I want to buy you. And it's, you know, we franchised Gourmet Burger Kitchen abroad, we franchised Pizza Express abroad, we opened in about 17 or 18 different countries, and you've got to be very careful. You can hit a gold mine. You know, Pizza Express was very successful in Spain, we wholly owned that. Very successful in Japan, we wholly owned that. The trouble with the franchisee, whether it's here in the UK or abroad, if it's a brilliant success, it's them who's so brilliant. And if it goes wrong, it's entirely your fault, the franchisor. So it is fraught. It's a contract-based business before you even start operating a restaurant. So we probably will do a quasi-JV franchise. We own 20% of Italy. Not Italy, obviously. Who'd want to own 20% of Italy at the moment? We own 20% of that restaurant in Italy, but it didn't cost very much. In fact, I don't think it cost anything. We got 20% for nothing. Even better. So yes is the answer. We will do it. We looked at northern Germany. We looked at the Gulf. We looked at Paris. I'd rather do Paris than the Gulf. Certainly Kuwait. No Kuwaitis here, are there?
If you were to add another brand or cuisine type to the portfolio...
Not going to.
No?
No, we tried a third brand a couple of years ago. It was a disaster. We opened a steak and hamburger restaurant, and the margins were never as good because we couldn't get the supply lines organised, and so we couldn't have the really low food cost, even versus our low prices, that we could achieve with these two businesses. And so we were under pressure to have high prices in the restaurant. Anyway, it was a disaster. We closed it after a year, so we were badly scarred, and we're not going to do that again. So we've got two successful brands. We're just going to stick at them.
Question here, please.
Yep.
Hello. Yes, I agree with you about the quality of your pizza. One question. Have you considered adding home deliveries to your offering, or is that totally beyond the pale?
No, we do Deliveroo.
Oh, you do?
Both in the Greek. I think it's about 8% of the business. Mainly at lunchtime. You have the facility with these delivery companies to turn the switch off. Some managers, we try and say, look, you mustn't ruin the service within the restaurant. And some managers are so keen on getting turnover and their profit share and everything, they'll keep the switch on, and hamper the service in the restaurant. We've got to nag them to turn it off if they're really busy, because the people in the restaurant are the priority. A delivery is 10% in some restaurants. We only do half of Deliveroo in FRANCO MANCA, half the units do Deliveroo, because as I said right at the beginning, our units are terribly small, so they're really busy. And what customers, if they're sitting like this eating, they don't want a Deliveroo driver coming in and out. So of the 42 FRANCO MANCA, I think we only do 19 or 20 arrangements with Deliveroo. The bigger ones, the ones with a side door or a back door that we can do delivery out of. And we will never do all of them because some of them just don't suit Deliveroo, despite the demand in the area. I mean, it's an easy plus 5% turnover in the restaurant.
Gentleman behind, yeah.
Two questions. Is there any learning from the Brighton Marina one, which I know you've since closed? I think you opened 2 in Brighton.
Yeah. Well, at Pizza Express, they used to say, Paige, you're an idiot. I said, look, we've opened 50 restaurants some year, and they're all successes. They say Dundee and Yeovil. And they weren't brilliant successes in Pizza Express. And it's demographics, especially with FRANCO MANCA, most of the people tend to be dressed in black, have gone to university, trendy, groovy, between 20 and 35. There aren't any of those people in Brighton Marina. We found out after we opened. Secondly, the developers of Brighton Marina doubled the number of restaurants, just as we were opening the FRANCO MANCA. And quite frankly, with 60 restaurants, approaching 60 restaurants, I mean, you would probably get 3 or 4% wrong. We got another one, 2 we had to write down last year, 2 in Muswell Hill, FRANCO MANCA and the Real Greek. For some reason, they didn't work, so we wrote them down by a couple of £100 each, or 200 or 300 grand each, their carrying value. So we still make mistakes. We think we're brilliant, but we still make mistakes in terms of location.
Thank you. The second question, then, you might have part answered that, is it part of your strategy to look to open one of each restaurant in the new areas? I read recently you might be interested in Birmingham. Would you also look at a Real Greek in Birmingham to follow suit?
Yeah. I don't know whether you know Birmingham. I mean, it's brilliant. I mean, it's made great strides from... Because I used to go to these places. For instance, I went to Sheffield about 30 years ago, and the Blunkett Council almost ruined the centre of Birmingham for one reason or another. And we did open the Pizza Express there. No, it's Sheffield, sorry. We did open the Pizza Express there, but I was promised I'd never go back, a bit like Kuwait. I'd never go back. Sheffield and Kuwait, I'd never go back there. And then I went back after about 20 years. What a transformation! I had to eat my words. And Birmingham's the same. I mean, absolutely brilliant. Cheap at half the prices of London, at home, great transport links and stuff. Yeah, so we haven't signed yet for FRANCO MANCA, but we've put in planning. And if we found a site for a Real Greek, we'd open a Real Greek in Birmingham. We're doing Leeds as well for FRANCO MANCA. Shh, nobody knows that.
I had one more question. About price sensitivity, and you mentioned how much cheaper the pizza chain was compared to Pizza Express. I'm thinking of Muswell Hill. Maybe they've got the money. They don't care particularly how much something's cost. They can afford it. How sensitive to price do you think your customers are?
We still don't know what's wrong in Muswell Hill. Bill's is one of their worst 5 units in Muswell Hill, whereas the Wetherspoon takes 60 grand a week. Now, I thought Muswell Hill was posh, Oh, sorry, Wetherspoon's lovely. But
if you put 50p on all your pizzas, do you think that overnight that would have a huge impact?
There is a dynamic tension on the board. Here is standing one view. Other people want to absolutely be the lowest possible price. We shouldn't chase profits. But one of our sort of upstart competitors is something called Pizza Pilgrims that's got about 8. And we don't think their pizza's as good as us because it's not really sourdough. They've moved away from sourdough. But their margaritas is 90 pence more expensive than ours. So I'm saying, well, let's put on 25p. We'll still be a lot cheaper than them, whereas we're about £3 cheaper than Pizza Express. So we're not. When I mention Pizza Express, we're not really comparing ourselves with Pizza Express. It's a frozen product and it's very expensive. What we'd like to do is look at all these little independents and see what they're charging, and still be cheaper than them. So if you're talking to me, I think there's another 30 or 40 pence per pizza today that we could put on. But we have a number of issues, which is wage rises, pensions just come in, and so most of that price rise, not unfortunately, but most of it will go towards the staff and the higher wage costs.
Okay. We're out of time. Thank you very much indeed, David. Thank you.